Thank you, and a very hearty welcome to all of you in the conference today. Chairman MPEDA, my colleague Swami, Chief Executive National Fishery Development Board, senior officials from the Government of India, different ministries, my colleagues from state government and from different states, not only the coastal states but also the inland states, like I'm happy to note that Rajasthan, Punjab, and apart from Kerala, Odisha and the regular coastal states also have been represented here. Similarly, different stakeholders in the fishery sectors, the exporters, the export promotion councils, and other academia and different research bodies. I welcome all of you to this conference here. About 2-3 months back, when I had taken up in Department of Commerce the subject of MPEDA, so I was discussing with the chairman, and as he mentioned, there are quite a few issues around development of marine exports, and when we were discussing these issues, I felt that series-wise we need to be talking to different stakeholders, but it is important that a workshop or a collective discussion on some of these topics should happen. I'm told earlier also MPEDA had been doing that. Last year also a conference was worked out, and before that also has been done. But maybe as a more regular feature, this is an exercise that we should be taking up. So first of all, at the outset, let me compliment Chairman and MPEDA officials to have organized this conference in a beautiful location in South Goa here, and I welcome all the participants. As the speakers have mentioned, I mean, they are from the sectors, the experts, both the MPEDA chairman and the Chief Executive National Fisheries Board has explained how fisheries as a sector, it's a large sector, and in India, between the India being a large country and between state centers and different aspect of the the fishery sector, whether it is catch or culture, how there are different stages or different steps being going. So it is typically the problem of the elephant and the 10 blind men when you are looking at a complex big subject from different perspectives. So each has a view which is pertaining to that perspective. But when you have to look at sectors like this and you want to have a coordinated effort to promote the sector, then perhaps a greater understanding of a larger vision is required. And for that, when it is spread across, it is important that we have a platform and somebody plays that enabling role of bringing everybody together, where things can be discussed, sorted out, and while in conferences we cannot solve the problem, but we can solve the problem of understanding the problem. So once you have different understanding that what needs to be done at where, so perhaps in this 2 days workshop, if we could look at different issues or matters or subjects required, and have some kind of an understanding that what is the way forward, that as a takeaway from the workshop, each of us in our respective domain can take these steps, so that largely as a country as a whole we head in a particular direction. So it is from that perspective that a workshop like this become very important. Of course, we have experts from the sector, so they will be better be telling you in these sessions what are the various issues and what needs to be done and by whom. So that will be largely the thrust of the sessions or panel discussions that we will be having today and tomorrow before we conclude with the Commerce Secretary and set for ourselves target to take up the way forward. Now, in terms of the subject itself, of course, from the export side, Chairman has mentioned, globally we have a $190 billion industry, where we have been making some impressive progress. We are now the 7th largest exporters in marine products. After Norway, China, Chile and some other countries, I think we have been doing fairly well in the sector. In the morning, in the welcome session, the chairman, complimented all in the room because it's a collective effort. We have achieved the target this year, which is impressive. We have come to 64,000 crore. But the Government of India Union Budget 2021-22, I believe, sets the target for 1 lakh crore. So if we have to achieve that and 1 lakh crore by 25-26, so in another 2 years, if we have to reach 1 lakh crore from the 64,000 crore, there are some steps that are required to be taken up, especially in terms of value addition, in terms of different processing that we need to develop along with what we are currently doing. Now, in that context, of course, one could say, as again MPEDA chairman was mentioning, that this is a complex sector, and the world over, since if we have to export these products to different countries, then and we are doing that for about 129 countries. So if we are doing that across the globe, we have to cater to their local requirements, and these requirements are varied. Today, as the world grows in the technology world, there is a much greater level of scrutiny on exports in general. Even in the engineering goods, even across sector, if you look at it, there is a greater awareness among the customers and the consumers. People are looking at rules of origin. People are looking at last mile, tracking of how the product has been processed across sector. And especially when it comes to the food sector, the sensitivity is very high, with the growing concerns, especially in matured democracies, markets like Europe and US, on the food products. There is a growing concern in terms of the pesticide or residue levels, in terms of antibiotics, in terms of various environmental concerns that are increasingly coming in. Of course, these battles we fight in the WTO and other world bodies, where we say that developing countries, they have to be a differential standards, and some of the concerns which perhaps are there in the developed economies may not be so much applicable to the developing countries and to countries like us. So we do fight a very hard battle in terms of SPS, TBT, or different non-tariff barriers or technical standards that oftentimes are imposed by many of the countries, and many times these standards or these conditionalities which are imposed may not be very rational. But at the bottom line, the case is that if you have to do business with a particular country, you have to meet the consumer's requirement there. So no business can be done by my own standard, that I supply at my standard and I don't bother about what you are thinking, because that does not happen in business. So if there is a market where consumers are aware of it, if they are whether right or wrong, if there are certain conditions that are being or expectations that are required to be imposed, and if we have to compete, there we have to meet or maintain those standards. One contra view, of course, could be that India is a large market, and we can supply to our own markets. So perhaps in that case we don't need to look at exports at all. But that is not a best way of growing. The experience has shown that as we in an integrated global economy, as we become larger part of the global trade, we cannot be isolated. In fact, economics standard analysis will show that any GDP growth, if you're looking at over a period of 30 years, GDP growth is linked to export growth. So we have to be integrated with exports, and sectors where we have our resources, we have to compete with the best in the world. So to isolate our domestic markets and say that global shocks are not required because we have a growing population and we can meet our own domestic requirement, will only isolate us. So and in the sectors like marine or fisheries, there is definitely a case where you have a class, deep pocket markets, economies like US and Europe, where high-end seafood products like shrimps and all, any day will be, the paying capacity will be much higher there than compared to our domestic industry. So while we need to develop our domestic markets, as NMDP and Department of Fisheries and Ministry of Food Processing, we are looking at it, and we are developing for our own market, which is a huge market. But bringing in export element will only add to the profitability and the size of the market, and also it will bring in international standards for our domestic consumers also. So it is both ways. As the chief executive of the Fisheries Board was saying, that domestic standards also we have to go to the global standards. So perhaps in seafood or other marine products, when we are looking at the consumers, domestic consumers, bringing in those international standards are always helpful. A, to develop our own domestic markets, B, to be integrated and to have as much dollar earning we can, given that our requirement in exports is always there in sectors where we have a large coastline. We have one of the largest fishermen population in the world, and of course, depending upon climatic conditions, some of the smaller island states or nations are able to do it much at a much more corporatized or mechanized level than compared to us. But because we have the strength of our fishermen who can take up, play an important part in that growing global value chain. So if we are able to provide this right kind of environment, we can be part of. We have in fact last 8 years, as the experience shows, while the world has increased, the sector has grown about 3.5%. We have grown about 8.5%, and our share has been increasing. So if we continue on this path, we will definitely be able to get as much as dollars we can earn from the food sector while developing, profitability for our fishermen, for our domestic markets also. So it will be a win-win situation for us. But to do that, we require to bring in some of these different stakeholders together, because it's a complex issue. State governments are involved, central governments are involved, so agencies, authorities, and research institutions at central government level, whether it is Department of Fisheries, or either it is food processing, or it is marine product, MPEDA itself in Commerce Department, and at the state level, it is not only the Fisheries Department which is represented here, but also your revenue commissioners, land issues have to be resolved. So serene water in the coastal authority area, or as Rajasthan, or Punjab, we have to develop, co-opt the revenue administration there, so that the collectors and the field, we can have guidelines and systems developed where if the fisherman or the farmer feels that there is a profitability, and if there is a proper environment or system there, then more and more people can come in and make good profit and make a good industry out of the sector. So for that, one stakeholders at the state level, apart from fisheries, will be the revenue administration. But along with that also comes in other battery of department, like the drugs and food fisheries inspectors, and other block level, taluk level officials, and the fishermen or the farmer groups. So these are different people who are involved, and of course coastal authority is also there because of the coastal regulations that have to be followed in. So if all of these stakeholders are together, and then if we can combinedly take up different, each state-wise, each zone-wise, each area-wise, what are the potentials and what can be developed as a roadmap to develop the sector there, then perhaps we can have a much more impressive target to go ahead. So it is the conference like this where all these stakeholders, normally in a meeting, if it is a particular issue you can resolve, but if there are multi-dimensional and multi-stakeholder issues, then perhaps a conference like this becomes more meaningful, where each session-wise, issue-wise also we could discuss that what are the different aspects of the problem and what are different possible solutions, and of course peer learning from one state to other state to whatever extent it is applicable can also be developed. So it is in that direction that we are looking at this workshop, and I look keenly ahead for the sessions that you will be having, and what are the action points that come out of these discussions and deliberations, which we could follow it up. And not being one of its kind, perhaps we could follow it up depending upon the SAJC or the how well we are able to come up in these 2 days solution. Perhaps more of these regional meetings we can look at different places. Odisha, Rajasthan, Andaman are different places where perhaps we need to be going forward developing these ecosystems. As was mentioned in the opening points, you have to look at the sector end to end. So starting from registration, to the value chain, to the supply mechanism. If suppose many countries suddenly like Europe will deregister some of the exporters because some traces of antibiotics are in some particular sample are found, then we have to do the root cause analysis, where did it originate and whether we have been able to seclude and what steps we are able to put in place. So these are the dimensions required. So we have to have end-to-end solution. We have to have a backward linkage and forward linkage if exports have to, from the folk, as they say, folk to plate. So I mean, it is to the end point if you have to have the traceability. And today, as I was saying, that the awareness is a level where the expectation is that you are able to trace this whole value chain to the last point. And technology or solutions exist, but we need to have systems in between in place. So it is that direction where this is required. And as I said, I am looking forward for those discussions. And maybe if collectively we could look at these issues and resolve. And MPEDA, if we can provide that platform for different stakeholders to come together, the sector can be developed in a much, already some impressive gains have been made in the sector, and we would like this to be carried forward, taking it to the, the target levels that we have looked at. 1 lakh crore is for 24-25, but till 2030 itself, we look at this 18 billion is the 2030 target. So much beyond when we are looking at, the scope is there and we have the potential to do it. Only thing is that we have to put our act together. So I once again welcome all of you to the conference, and I look forward for discussions and some good outcome of the conference. Thank you. Once again I thank you.